Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a really dense, fast-paced broadcast covering the recent NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey. If you've been tracking this at all, you know this summit was an absolute whirlwind of geopolitical updates, covering everything from defense spending to active war zones. So our goal today is to break down this giant global tour and objectively see exactly how all these claims connect. Let's get right into it.
Since this source material rapid fires through some wildly different topics, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The historic NATO summit. 2. Expanding defense manufacturing. 3. Rising tensions with Iran. 4. The push for Greenland. And 5. Shifting dynamics in Ukraine.
Section 1. The historic NATO summit, European investment.
We're starting right at the epicenter of the broadcast, Ankara, Turkey, and the critical discussions surrounding European defense spending. The guest from the Heritage Foundation brought up this fascinating phrase coined by Mark Rutten, the Trump trillion. They're using this phrase to frame recent financial commitments as a massive historic influx of European investment into NATO defenses. After years of back and forth over who pays what, the claim being made here is that we're seeing a fundamental shift toward a much better funded alliance.
To really illustrate this new era of spending, the broadcast specifically contrasted Spain with the rest of the alliance. Spain, under Pedro Sanchez, was called out as the lone outlier right now, actively falling behind on its financial commitments. Meanwhile, virtually everyone else in NATO is successfully crossing that crucial 2% spending mark. So you've got an alliance moving uniformly in one direction, with literally just one notable exception.
Section 2. Expanding European defense manufacturing, a dual benefit.
Shifting from the money side to physical production, the interview outlined a major proposed change to how weapons are actually made across the alliance. The crucial point here is a severe logistical bottleneck. Currently, the demand for high-end U.S. systems like Stingers and ATACMS completely exceeds America's capacity to produce them rapidly. The proposed solution? Europe is going to step up and start manufacturing these U.S. systems themselves. By doing this step by step, both the U.S. and European industrial bases expand simultaneously, and Europe ultimately takes on a much greater role in its own self-defense. It's pitched as a total win-win.
Section 3. Rising tensions with Iran, a rapid escalation.
Okay, zooming out to the Middle East, the explainer detailed a very severe and rapid escalation in military conflict. The broadcast mapped out a super swift timeline. First, Iran struck a tanker, but geographical context is absolutely everything here. The guest emphasized this strike happened in Omani waters, across the Strait of Hormuz, and totally outside Iran's own territory. According to the broadcast, this effectively ended the existing ceasefire, prompting the U.S. military to respond immediately by striking exactly 80 specific targets. That is a massive escalation, happening incredibly fast.
Section 4. The push for Greenland. Strategic real estate.
Shifting our focus entirely, we're heading up to the Arctic for a really unconventional real estate proposition. Now, why on earth is Greenland suddenly a huge talking point at a NATO summit? Well, it all boils down to one staggering number: 75%. To underscore the strategic urgency, the guests claimed that 75% of all Russian missiles fired at the United States would follow a trajectory directly over Greenland. When you frame it with that statistic, Greenland stops being just a giant icy island. It literally becomes the most critical piece of defensive airspace on the board.
So, how do you handle a massive 75% threat like that? The guest outlined a proposed structural model from the Heritage Foundation called the Corporation for Greenland. It's basically modeled after the setup they already have in Alaska. The argument is that this would mutually benefit Greenland, Denmark, and the U.S., while crucially giving the United States the sovereign control it claims is necessary to install vital missile defense batteries.
And a speaker warned that the U.S. absolutely needs this secure footing to avoid losing its strategic advantage, drawing a direct parallel to the United Kingdom. They cited the UK nearly giving up its Diego Garcia base as a major cautionary tale. The message was clear. Avoiding another Diego Garcia situation in the Arctic is absolutely essential for keeping the U.S. secure.
Section 5. Shifting dynamics in Ukraine, a changing battlefield.
For our final stop, we move to Eastern Europe to neutrally examine the broadcast's claims about the shifting, day-to-day dynamics in the Ukraine-Russia war. The broadcast reported that Ukraine has actually moved past its previous 28-point draft plan for peace. Why? Because the battlefield conditions have fundamentally changed. Buoyed by the accelerated, highly successful use of attack drones, which are reportedly causing severe domestic impacts inside Russia, like massive gas shortages, Ukraine is now pushing for a better deal with stronger defense guarantees.
And interestingly, through all of this turmoil, lines of communication reportedly remained completely open with both Putin and Zelensky.
Which brings us to the end of our global tour. We've just looked at interconnected claims spanning massive NATO funding influxes, European factories building American weapons, rapid military strikes in the Middle East, a strategic push for Greenland, and a completely evolving battlefield in Ukraine. So, stepping back, we have to ask, how will these fundamental intertwined shifts from European manufacturing to Arctic missile paths ultimately reshape the global balance of power in the years to come? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.